Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined in the studio today by Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. As we go to air, Ange Postecoglou is still in charge of Tottenham Hotspur. Just a reminder how Spurs sit in the Premier League table. As it stands, they are 7 clear of Wolves, who sit in the relegation zone alongside Ipswich and Southampton. Of course, the reason Wolves are there is because Everton and Leicester over the last couple of weeks have registered victories against Tottenham. Ange Postecoglou then, after the game, was asked about his future at the club.
Oh, mate, who knows, mate? I mean, who knows? I reckon there's probably a fair chunk that will say no. But I can't, like I said, I can't, look, it's, you know, when you're a manager of a football club, it's a very kind of, you can be very vulnerable and isolated. I don't feel that. I really feel like this group of players, not for me, but they're given everything for the club. I've got a group of staff that's really committed, so I kind of focus on that.
Just a reminder how disastrous the run has been of late for Spurs. Take a look at that. Obviously, defeats against Liverpool, Forest, Newcastle, Arsenal, Everton and Leicester. A draw against Wolves just before the turn of the year is that only point they have picked up during that time in the Premier League. As we welcome in Mario Nedum. We're hearing from the boys soon.
I'm not sacking anybody at 10:30 at night.
Why not?
In England. When have you ever heard that before?
I'm sure people... I'm sure there isn't a cut-off time. No, it's time for bed. We don't have any time for this sort of shenanigans.
You're missy deadline.
Have your hot cocoa and that's it.
Usually there's a good sacking in the morning or the afternoon. Not at 11 p.m.
Too late. It's too late.
And oh, Ange, sorry you're going to bed, but you're out.
Are they making a mistake by keeping minimum?
You know, he's got the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, which they're leading at Liverpool. And he's got Europe at the moment, sort of saving him somewhat. The league form alone is a disaster. It's been so enjoyable to watch them up until the last period.
They haven't even been fun, though, anymore.
No, they're no fun. And also, they've lost their identity in the final third. Where in the final third before, they used to create a lot of chances, weren't always clinical. Now they're sort of running out of ideas. The back line's worrisome. The tactics are worrisome. The full-back positioning has continued to be a huge worry. The spaces in the middle of the park when they lose possession are some of the worst I've ever seen at this level. The attempted challenges from the likes of Bentancur and others when, you know, we saw the challenge yesterday that led to one of the goals from Bentancur. He could just go and clean man and ball out, and he has this crazy swipe at it. So, all in all, was I expecting him to be sacked this morning because of the previous history of Daniel Levy? I was. And I think there's a lot of frustration from the Tottenham fans that it's not been done, but there's also a lot of frustration at the top from the Tottenham fans at Daniel Levy and ownership. So, it's a bit of everything here. I don't see him getting through this period. I don't.
For me, the only thing that's keeping Daniel Levy in the job is that there isn't a ready-made replacement. Postecoglou, excuse me. Is that there isn't a ready-made replacement. and maybe that's because of this expanded Champions League format and everybody who's doing well anywhere in Europe are still in the competition. So no club is willing to give their manager, who's having any measure of success, permission to talk to anybody at this moment, if they're still...
But surely you're down in the South Coast begging and with a stash of cash to Bournemouth.
He's going, I'm not going now.
Again, exactly. Bournemouth aren't going to allow Areola the opportunity to talk to anybody right now. And that's the issue. Can you go from end of January to May with an interim manager? Right. And while we've seen Daniel Levy as we were discussing yesterday, sack Jose Mourinho right before final. I think the fact that they're still in the Cups doesn't really weigh on Daniel Levy's mind at all. It's just that all of a sudden now you're bringing an interim with 3 months to go in the season, or 4 months to go in the season. That's a long time to go without a proven track record, especially given their position.
Right, Nedum, take me through this, OK? I understand there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of problems that Ange is trying to deal with. But as Craig mentioned, they were so exposed yesterday and they were such schoolboy errors that surely a coach of a Premier League level should be able to address. Why isn't he able to address it? Where are they getting it wrong?
But the goal's nowhere to be seen. And I think that is a concern in itself. And Postecoglou, you know, he has his ideas, has the way that he wants his team to play, the mentality he wants them to have. But as well as having some of those injuries now and some of the young players coming in, you can see that the players are low on confidence as well. Like playing at home and losing to a Leicester City side like that, I think it's a tough position for them to be in. And himself, you know, he's being open, he's being honest, he's saying the players are giving everything, and they are. But everything at this stage for Spurs isn't enough. And I know that they don't have as many starters out there as say they would like to. You know, I think it's 11 or 12 first-team players missing. But that team should be doing better against a side that's as low in confidence as Leicester City are. You know, a week ago I was hearing talks that, you know, Leicester City with Van Nistelrooy, they're really struggling. They've got nothing going for them. So then, of course, Spurs should win this game. But instead, you know, Leicester now outside of the bottom three. And, you know, fair play to them in a certain extent. But as I say, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And in some ways, I've been a very, very strong right Ange defender to this point. But if he would have lost a job after that game, I wouldn't have been surprised.
This is it, Mario, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be any answers coming from Postecoglou that address the questions tactically, how he's dealing with these situations, how exposed his sides are looking against inferior opponents. I know injuries is a massive factor, but this is Leicester, this is Everton. These are two of the worst teams in the Premier League, yet they get 3 points off you in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, this is one of those situations. I think what the guy stepped in is already highlighted the way things are playing-wise for them. But if you look at like the more you can look the 6-3 against Liverpool when they lost, then they got the FA Cup was the 10 word where they just scrapped past them. And now they meet Leicester that is not in a good form. This was like, you know, we call this like 3-pointer games, you understand? When you're in this situation, you're thinking about, I have to win that. I cannot lose this game. But they almost went into that game, the way they were playing, it felt almost like they didn't even think about that. They just thought like we're in a normal position and we're not even around those, you know, losing situations and getting into relegation situation. I'm not saying they are in it already, but they're kind of like holding on to it. And you really don't want to sit where they sit right now because it's for the fans it gets uncomfortable. And for some of the players, I think the guys are coming from the outside, playing in a team like this, they probably feel uncomfortable and thinking like, what is that heat and everything around me? Because it feels uncomfortable being in that situation for a club like them.
Let's be honest. There is an argument to say he shouldn't get to the Liverpool game, the semi-final. There is an argument to say he should. Whatever side of the fence you're on. But he's one pummeling at Anfield away from losing his job, basically. And as the guy said, Leicester City, we all sat here and said they have to win that one. 7 straight defeats, a 38-year-old up front. You know, a manager who most people are saying, he's not the right man for the job. But the worry thing is, and whether it's coming from the technical area or whether it's players that just can't figure it out, you can't go bombing forward as a fullback or as a midfielder until you see your teammate in comfortable possession.
So whose fault is that?
Well, look at the second goal when they lost possession in the right back area, just a bit forward from that. Papi Sarr was stood holding hands with Richarlison in the centre-forward position. He's already gone. Right, now they lost the ball, but there was a little bit of pressure from Leicester there. So, and that left, and once Bentancur once he's also across, because he's involved in it, there is a massive hole in the middle. And I mean, absolutely huge. And that happens all the time with Tottenham, and I think maybe it's the manager. And if it is, look, the manager then has to say, listen, guys, we can't be so gung-ho. You need to wait, you need to be clever. But you can't have your left back or your right back standing up in the right wing position when you've got midfielders under a little bit of pressure in their own half. Because when they lose it, you're screwed. Now, there's multiple examples of this with Tottenham, and it's not been addressed. That's the concern is that it is not being addressed. If you said now, maybe Southampton apart, who are the most open team in the Premier League? Who are the easiest team to get at in the Premier League? You wouldn't say Ipswich, although they took a battering from Man City. You'd probably say Southampton. You would definitely say Tottenham Hotspur, and there lies the problem.
Let me add to your question, Dan. I have started to blame Postecoglou for this. Now, while a lot of the focus around Postecoglou and Spurs' defensive issues has been the high line, and without Van der Ven, they just don't have the pace, but he refuses to change or have a plan B. Time and time again, I just think Spurs make very basic errors defensively. And while at first it's easy to put that down to the individual, when that keeps happening to any number of individuals over a prolonged period of time, you have to start asking questions of the manager. I specifically remember Spurs at home to Chelsea and how easily they conceded in that game, a game that they lost at home to a City rival. Basic errors. Sometimes you just need to put the ball into touch and not worry about having to pass the ball out to the back. I was very critical of Postecoglou a couple of weeks ago in the first leg of that cup game against Newcastle, where, again, you just take the lead. Austin, who's in goal, albeit first time for a very long time, decides to try to pass the ball out to the back. And then there's the controversy around the handball. But it never should have come to that. And I said then that was down to Postecoglou, that the team are just... It seems as though they all feel forced into playing the game a certain way, in not just defending what they have. So again, because we're talking a number of players, because we're talking over a prolonged period, the manager has to carry the can for that.
But this is a...
Yeah, but hey, but guys, you also have to think about the situation. They need a leader too, because we're talking about a team now. They're wide open. You guys are talking about, but who in the team is really going to call them back if they're getting exposed like that? Sometimes, okay, I understand the coach. He has to maybe change in certain ways, but also as a team player, you're on the pitch. You're going to say to the guys, "Come on now," because I think I'll give an example. When Harry Kane was there at that time, he was definitely the leader and changing teams that maybe even if the manager wouldn't like it, but now someone has to talk. You're not going to let your team get pummeled every game, every week game. You're playing and you look so wide open. It's almost like it's embarrassing sometimes playing against them. It's like they're so spread open. There's so many holes in the team. Is no one fixing it? And I think that becomes a big issue, and that it has become a big issue for them. And I don't think they can fix it now because it's a normality for them to be open.
Did you see the Paddy Power, the British bookie?
No. What's the...
And this sort of sums Tottenham up.
Right.
That he's going to be another manager that just falls the same way as Mourinho and Conte and Pochettino and all the ones that have gone before them. Jamie Vardy won the conference with Fleetwood, got promoted with Leicester, won the Premier League, won the FA Cup, got relegated, got promoted again, drunk 100,000 cans of Red Bull, and Spurs still haven't won a trophy.
Yep, there we go.
Which kind of tells you where they are in a nutshell. That he'll just be the fall guy again, and Daniel Levy will sit there, they'll pluck another manager out. Maybe they'll have some better luck, but they'll certainly have some better structure at this moment in time. But maybe they'll have some more success, but I think there's an ownership issue as well here. Not to go away from Postecoglou. At the moment, his tactics are a disaster. But there's definitely a momentum shift in the Tottenham fans towards the ownership. Whether they're going to be able to shift them as well as the manager, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I totally agree with that. But Daniel Levy has found himself in this really odd position in that he's not really the owner of the club.
No, he's not.
Oh, no, this feels like something Gab Marcotti's going to come on and explain.
I'm just saying, had it been anybody else, I think the calls for Daniel Levy's head would have been a lot louder.
A lot more on Spurs and where it went wrong. By the way, with Gab Marcotti and Jules on the latest edition of their podcast.